So what's your podcast about?
Superheroes.
It's a little geeky, but I think you guys are gonna like it.
Try not to be too geeky.
No, I can't promise that.
Should we begin?
It's a bird. It's a plane. It's the Geek and You Shall Find podcast. And now, your hosts, Kelsey Dickerson, Brad Fay, Kate Fay, and Noah Berlin.
Hold on to your butts.
Welcome to the Geek and You Shall Find podcast. The Superhero Faces team is here. Well, actually, it's only, I guess, half of that. Our comrades, the first family of Superhero Faces, Brad and Kate, are traveling. So unfortunately, they're not able to be with us. But you've got me, Noah, and you've got Kelsey here. And we're going to recap all of episode 7 called The Red Sowing of House of the Dragon Season 2. And don't worry, Brad and Kate made sure to give us some of their takes and some of their awards on the episode. So we'll make sure to give them some shout outs and communicate their opinions the best we can. Never really know with Brad and some of the takes he has. But Kelsey, I'm going to start. Did you miss Kristen Cole in this episode? Because we didn't get any Sir Crispy here.
Okay, I watched later than you guys did. I had a lot of stuff going on when it actually aired, so I watched a day late. And after the episode aired, I was thinking it was like one of my favorite, if not my favorite House of the Dragon episode. I'm just gonna put that out of the way. And then I was thinking, because in the after episode, or when you see, you see the preview of the next one.
Yep.
Then you hear Kristen Cole's voice. I was like, Kristen wasn't in this episode at all. And I was like, did that have something to do with it? I don't know. But honestly, I will take whatever I can get. I already have my thoughts about the other half of Sir Crispy with the whole Alicent thing that happened. But you know what? It might have had something to do with it. Did you even recognize that I didn't even recognize that he was a part of it. Did you? Until after, and I was like, oh shit.
You don't recognize you have a good thing until you're reminded of it. So you're exactly when we saw him in the scenes from the next is like, oh yeah, that's probably one of the reasons I enjoyed this episode so much. I didn't have to look at him. But yeah, all right. Well, at that, let's get into the quick episode recap of this one. So the episode opens with a standoff between Rhaenyra and her dragon Syrax and Adam of Hull with his new dragon Sea Smoke. Rhaenyra suspicious. Adam quickly bends the knee though and pledges loyalty to Team Black. This validates Rhaenyra's plan, proves to her that she was right about assembling what she calls an army of bastards. Mysaria sends the word to all the Targaryen bastards in King's Landing that Rhaenyra is recruiting, and dozens show up to Dragonstone to attempt to claim a dragon. Daemon gets dunked on by a little kid, but at least he finally makes some progress in getting the houses of the Riverlands to his side. Alicent takes up glamping in the woods, and Rhaenyra leads her candidates to the Dragon Mount to try to bond with the 2 unclaimed dragon. Nearly all of them fail and die spectacularly, but Hugh and Ulf take different approaches and manage to bond with Vermithor and Silverwing. So Kelsey, last episode we asked, if you were a poor in King's Landing, you were a commoner and you had the opportunity to come up in the world, would you make that attempt? And we debated that last episode. After seeing how this went for so many of them here, any change of heart?
Okay. You know what's so funny is that my cousin started watching with me halfway through the episode last night when I was watching. And I asked her the same thing afterwards. And she was like, you know what? I'm going to die anyway. She's like, all those people probably wouldn't even be alive in that time. Realistically, she's like, maybe if you were an old person, you'd be 40 years old because of everything that happens. So she was 100%. Yeah. I'm going for it. But for me, I was like, I would have to I wouldn't be one of the ones showing up that doesn't have silver hair, first of all. There's no way. I'm going to be I need a sign that I actually have Targaryen blood in me, and that maybe isn't even fully a sign. But it also would have to depend on okay, am I super duper, super struggling, which I know everyone is, or am I I'm kind of comfortable, whatever. So I think I would be 50-50 still, but if I was Ulf, no, I absolutely would not have. I have my feelings on that. But if I was Hugh, I was yes, you're a badass. There's something deep inside of you. You know what I mean? I feel like Hugh was born to be something bigger than what was happening in his life. You know what I mean? And they probably write his character like that. But if I was Ulf, No, I would be a little bitch and I would probably just go somewhere else. What about you? Did you change your mind?
Uh, maybe a little, because I was of the impression that like I'm in, man. If I'm poor, I'm starving, like my family's dead, I'm not doing anything. I might die on the streets tomorrow of starvation, like, and I get this opportunity to you know, be a lord and own lands and have a dragon and be a badass and be respected. Like it would change everything for me and future generations. So I was thinking I would, but after seeing how it went for a lot of them, I don't know anymore. But you're right. Like if I have some like streaks of the white of the silver in my hair, probably not gonna do it. Whereas if I got the full blown like Targaryen hair, I'd be far more likely to do it. But at that, let's get into I want to talk about just the main storyline of the episode, which of course was Team Black. It was Rhaenyra trying to amass, more power on her side by getting more dragon riders. So it starts obviously, episodes ago. Jace, the son, actually kind of gives her the idea that there are those that, didn't rule and they were still offshoots from our house. And so the idea expands further after last episode, where Missaria, the White Worm, convinces Rhaenyra, like, okay, you're halfway there. Like, we need to open it up to new people, but they don't need to be like highborn. They don't need to be like lords already. They could just be straight up common folk, small folk, bastards in the city. Like, you never know. Like, we don't know exactly what it takes. So she convinces Rhaenyra and enacts her plan to get the word out to all of the people of King's Landing. And just like everyone's talking about it. Everyone's already gassing up Rhaenyra from that food delivery, the Uber Eats last episode. But at first we see like they're in that tavern and that dude comes and he's like, Ulf, this is your opportunity. And he's like, oh man, I'd be first in line, but like my leg's not doing too good.
He's like,
I got like an
oh,
injury from balling the other day.
my
Like,
hip, is not quite what they used to be. Ugh. Yo, I know. I was like, oh, the second that happened and they were in that pub, I was like, Ulf is gonna bitch out. I'm like, I doubt, like, and honestly, like, obviously spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen it yet, but like, I was like, there's no way this guy has Targaryen blood in him. He's like one of those people that just talks, like, you know what I mean? And
yeah.
I was like, there's going to be no validity to this. I thought that maybe he was just going to like run off or whatever. But that scene actually was really funny. I actually laughed out loud. Like, I really loved the interactions between all of them, and they're like, to off the dragon rider or whatever. He's like,
Yeah.
or like dragon blood or whatever. It's so funny.
And the one guy's like, wait, hold on a second. You've been accepting free drinks from all of these people for this whole time. So obviously he's been like really leaning into this for a long time, that he's a Targaryen, and everyone's just like gassing him up. And then he's like, oh man, I wish I could. But it was interesting because I'm like, he said that he was a bastard brother of Viserys and Daemon before. But as he's doing all this, I'm like, oh, he's just bullshitting. Like, this is all not true. Whereas contrast with Hugh, like, he never talks about how he has relations. He never talked about that before, but it comes out later, so it was very like, those are very polar opposites in terms of just everything about their characters. But I found it really interesting how essentially the outcome is the same for both, even though the approach they took and who they are and really everything else is very, very different. And I think that was by design, but I also liked it. So to recap with that, so Ulf, again, he said he was the bastard brother of Viserys and Daemon. Who knows if that's true, but he is obviously has some Targaryen. Hugh, he tells the story to his wife. He never knew his father, but he did know his mother, who was the sister of Viserys's mom. So it's come out online, basically, that the story there is Hugh is the son of Sarah Targaryen. She is the daughter of, like, in the beginning, when you see the council in the first episode, when like they tell the whole story of why Viserys was named king and not Rhaenys, like the very big flashback of the Great Council, and they're deciding who to name the heir. That king, that original king, that's Jacaerys the First, who is called the Conciliator. His daughter was this woman, Sarah Targaryen, and I guess she was just a rebel. She did anything she wanted to do. She would have relationships. She had a bunch of bastards herself, and she just was a free spirit. And so he basically banishes her from King's Landing. She goes across the narrow sea and works in a pleasure house, and she had this baby, Hugh, because she's just doing her own thing. And so that's the way that kind of worked. So
Okay,
I
'cause
guess
I
he
was
would be.
confused on that. I was like trying to think, like I was trying to connect the dots. So thank you for that. I was really confused.
Yeah, they've never named Sarah Targaryen in the show, but that's something like when you look at the whole family tree and all that stuff, it turns out that is who it was. But so technically, he would be then cousins to Viserys and Daemon. Not that that necessarily matters, but curious your thoughts on the fact that obviously we spent a lot of time throughout the season so far focused on the small folk, which we've liked, but focus on specific members of the small folk like these two here.
Mhm.
And then it turns out they go with this whole group of people like, no, we don't know any of these other people, so we already know all these assholes are fucking dead. Like, did it ruin it for you at all that it's like, okay, we know two people here, there are two dragons, it is very obvious what's going to happen here? Or did you think maybe they set it up where we got to know certain people so we care about them, and then when they die it would be more impactful?
I mean, I uh, not to be like wishy-washy this episode, but like I could go either way with it because part of me is like, okay, like I know that there's not just Targaryen bastards in King's Landing, obviously. Like, there's probably Targaryen bastards like throughout the Seven Kingdoms, like everywhere. Like, you know what I mean? Or even ones that don't have like silver hair and like things like that. And it's like there just happens to be two in King's Landing that answer this call who are about the same age. Like all those things. Like, it was just very convenient. But because we don't know why or how like a dragon chooses its rider, I mean, I don't know. I could go either way. I was really happy about Hugh. I thought that was done really well. I also too, it was a little confusing to me because I thought it was like if you try, like if you approach a dragon and like it rejects you, then it just kills you. But obviously, like they like kind of set up that
Nope.
like that dragon was like this, like, you know, what did they call him? Like the brutal, or what do they call
Yeah,
him?
the
Like
Bronze Fury.
Bronze Fury, yeah. So like he showed his fury, and it was like, yo, all those other people didn't even fucking try, and the guards are like keeping them in there, like as he's like, they're not even letting them run into like the castle. I'm like, that's really fucked up. But I don't know. I mean, I'm just like being like, okay, just run with it, whatever. The end shot was fucking awesome, and I'm obviously Team Black, so I'm like, just fucking
Yeah.
do it. But what about you? What did you think?
I think a little bit of it. I mean, when they all walked in and Rainier is talking to the whole lot of them and they keep showing the two of them, to me, I was like, okay, this is like the suspense was not there. It wasn't like, oh, what's gonna happen? To me,
Mm-hmm.
it seemed very obvious that out of the two dragons, they're somehow going to be claimed by these two assholes. Um, I suppose I could see it where they thought maybe like they were setting it up to like, oh, we get to know these characters, maybe we like them, and then we care more if they get burnt to a crisp or eaten or whatever. That's not exactly how I took it. But also like the small folk, it's interesting because there's no it doesn't there wasn't doesn't really seem to be like upward mobility within the class system in King's Landing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you are poor as fuck and are born that way and you will die that way, and like there's
Mm-hmm.
really no way to make a name for yourself. Like, no one's striking it rich on the stock market or whatever in King's Landing. So I can see where like if the king goes to the poorhouses and he's fucking whoever and they have babies, like those babies, they're not leaving King's Land. Like, where are they gonna go? They got nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So like they stay and all the bastards are there.
And
So
they
I
have
could
like
see
no
that too.
claim.
Exactly. Like that they
Yeah.
what are they going to do other than fight in child fighting pits or talk shit in a tavern? I don't know. But so, they enact this plan and Jace comes in and confronts his mom in a really interesting scene that I definitely want to dig into with you, because Jace is he's been sick of his mom's shit really this entire
Mm-hmm.
season.
Mm-hmm.
But the internet was blowing up with a lot of funny content about the scene, specifically where Jace calls these common folk, these bastards, mongrels. Okay, which I
Mm-hmm.
was like, ooh, damn, like
Yeah,
it
he came
struck
with
a
the
nerve a
heat with
little bit.
that. Yeah.
Um, and obviously he has a lot of sensitivity to bastards in general and how that ties into his own identity. But like online, there were people were making funny jokes. Someone's like, oh man, Jace is saying that these common folk are DEI hires, or he's saying he used the hard R in the word mongrels. Like, damn. But this dude, Jace, like he is self-aware enough to know what he is. And like this guy, if you think about it, Jace is supposed to be half black and supposed to have silver hair. and instead he's out here looking like Timothy Chalamet. So it's like he knows what's going on, and you know, in a big way, he's projecting his own insecurities about the way that people view him and all that. But yeah, like, I want your take, first of all, on his approach to things.
Yeah, I mean, at first I was like, damn, like, first of all, this was his idea. Like, you know what I mean? And when he originally was pitching it, I thought he was saying like bastards and stuff like that. But apparently that wasn't his spin on it. So
Yeah,
I
me
thought
too.
he had already like connected the dots there because of his heritage. And then seeing him come in, and also like, you know, he's been the voice of reason, and he's usually been very like almost like PC in a lot of ways, like, you know what I mean? Like throughout the season. It was like really it was like a big twist for me. Like it seemed like a big 180 with his character, of like just going like and just really basically showing like the propaganda that is surrounding the small folk, right? Like we see more of like how truly little people think about small folk, and like, you know, we can even see that today with like, you know, people who are like homeless, or like, you know, lower class or whatever, like, or even middle class, like people try to like villainize, you know, people like that even till today. And so like you really see that in that scene. um but I mean, I thought on it and I stewed on it a little bit, and I was like, well, he's absolutely correct, like, you know what I mean, like, and this is kind of something that we've been seeing throughout this season, especially like with the Targaryens, and being like, we are supposed to almost be deities because we're able to control these dragons, and like, because like, you know, we are special with our silver hair, and like we can do all these different things that other people can't. um so I mean, he does have some validity. It's selfish. But I mean, also too, like, what the fuck does he think? Like, they're already fighting for like Rhaenyra's claim, who was literally named by Viserys, like, to be the heir. He doesn't look anything like a Targaryen. So I'm like, I think either way, even if like she does like ascend to the throne and like is able to do it, like he's gonna have a battle anyways. Like, even without having all of these people in the wings and dragon riders and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. He made a very interesting point, and technically it is correct, because I mean, and I felt for him. Like, I really did, because obviously he just has he has so much insecurity. His sense of worth and who he is, his sense of self, that all is based on the fact that he's the heir, and he has this ability that no one else seemingly does, because he has a dragon. And so that right there, it is his legitimacy. But he's saying that, you know, if everyone, they can look at him and see that he's a bastard, and then once it tells everybody that no, you don't have to be special to be on these dragons, literally anyone can do it. And if someone now has a dragon that has silver hair and looks more Targaryen than he does, and that person says, you know what, I think I should be the king, like, why are people going to follow him and not
Yeah.
follow the other one?
Yeah,
So
I mean, I think it's just one small piece of the puzzle of like that they're like, you know, building up to like, this is exactly why the Targaryens, like when we get to Game of Thrones, like aren't in control anymore. There's just so much of them like destroying their own legitimacy,
yeah.
like, you know what I mean? And like their own like specialness, that it's like, it is nice to be able to, I think they're doing a great job of building it up. You know, I've harped a lot on like, you know, them like being like really on the nose with a lot of things, but I do appreciate the fact that they are painting a really good picture about like, because when you get to Game of Thrones and you see how special like Daenerys is and like dragons, and you're like, holy shit, how the hell did they ever fucking lose power? Like, how is this even possible?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I do really actually appreciate that aspect of it.
I think that's a great point, and something I hadn't really thought of before. And I appreciate that, because yeah, you think, like, we know going into this show that, all right, this is the story of the Targaryens and really their downfall, which will be interesting to see. But when you think about it, it's like, okay, how did this come about? It's like, oh, well, you know, there was infighting and there was a civil war within the family, and they all basically killed each other. That must be how they got from being the most powerful dynasty to being essentially extinct, except for Daenerys. But you're right, there's so many more little things that factor into it too. And this decision by Rhaenyra, while it was the smart decision for her to make because she had to, or else she had no shot to win, it really was short-sighted in terms of just like the legacy and the dynasty of the Targaryen family as a whole. So yeah, really, really interesting.
You know
Um,
what? On that point too, before we move on from like this scene, I think Jace made a really good point. Like he like when they're like going back and forth like quip for quip, like when he's like, why go for this? He's like, she's saying like all this stuff, and she's like, like it's my claim, like blah blah blah, like I have to do this. Like if I don't get these dragons, like I'm gonna lose or whatever. He's like, why are you even fighting for this? Like, you know what I mean? And I think that is a great insight into Rhaenyra, and that she does truly want the power. She wants the throne. And that is like a very almost like Damon like quality. You know how like a lot of times people say like, oh, they like mirror each other or whatever. That's like one of the first big ones for me that I saw where it's like, okay, I can see that she is like, because at first, she's like, well, I'm like the rightful heir. Like, this is what dad wanted. Like, like blah, blah, blah. Like, and I think she'd be a better ruler for sure. But like, she never outrightly comes and like says like, well, this is what I want. Like, you know what I mean? It's always like hinted that it's like almost like, well, this is like a power put on her, and that she like a responsibility almost, like, you know what I mean?
I know
So I
exactly what
thought
you
that
mean.
was really interesting.
Yeah, Rhaenyra I think is really interesting in this episode too, because someone online, I wish I had a credit or a handle or something to shout these people out. I apologize, but one person said that essentially in this episode, Rhaenyra was cosplaying as Daemon in this episode, where just like with a lot of the things that she said and the way she acted. But if you go through her mindset just from the start of this episode to the end of this episode, it's like in the beginning she doesn't really know what's going on. She's confused. She meets Adam and his dragon with her dragon, and she's like, "What is going on? How did you do this? Who are you?" And she went very quickly from that and not knowing what's going on to being like, yeah, this is ordained by the gods. Like, I am in this place. This decision was put before. And she says it like 2 or 3 different times throughout the episode. Once to Jace in the same scene that like, I can't ignore what the gods are putting in front of me. And she said it to the like the union of dragon tamers or whatever those guys were too, where
So like, we're fucking out of here, bro.
yeah, and but she's like, yeah, she's like, the gods have put these people before me, and they're like, no, you put these people before you. So she goes very quickly from, I'm just trying to figure out what's going on, I don't really know, to like, nope, this is what's going on, and this is ordained from the gods. I am like following the righteous path, which is concerning, I think, for a character that we love, and you kind of see that on her face at the end, which we'll get to. But the claiming of the dragons, I think this confirmed a little through some of the conversations that we debated, is this all propaganda? Like, can literally anyone do it? Does it have to be the blood of old Valyria? Does it have to be Targaryen? And it seems like they're walking that back a little bit, where like you have to have some Targaryen. It is Targaryen blood, and you have to have at least some. Varying degrees, it's not for sure. But they show this when Adam is talking, or no, Alan is talking to Corlys, and he's like, yeah, I know I was having an affair with this lady for multiple years and fathered multiple kids that are bastards with her, but I know nothing about her. Like, can you tell me about your mom's like lineage? He's like, I am a shitty person. And so like you get from that like probably she had some Targaryen in her down the line. He does not. But
that was interesting, because I was like, oh, maybe it is just Valyrian blood that you need. But with that conversation, it's still really like blurry to me.
Yeah. But so we get, dozens of these people, low-born commoners, bastards from King's Landing that make the trip. They're all there in Dragonstone now, and the dragon tamers, like we talked about, they are fucking pissed. They are unionizing. They're packing up their long sticks, their little poker sticks, and they're getting the fuck out of here. They had one quote, though, that I thought was very cool. The guy is like, the dragons are sacred. They're the last magic of old Valyria in this sad world. They're not playthings in the games of men. And that truly, like, that is how they're treating them here. And so we'll see if it bites them in the ass. Like, we don't know. But Rhaenyra does also admit to like this court of commoners that like she doesn't know shit. She's like, this might go well, it might go very bad. No matter what, like your lives are over. Either you're going to die or it'll change for the better. But like your lives as you know them is over. And I don't know, the way she approached like just throwing them all out there together, not one at a time. Like, I mean, I don't know. That really like was strange to me a little bit.
Okay. So like I was saying, like I was watching with my cousin and like you know how like when you watch a show with someone, even if they know nothing about it, you're still like kind of pausing and like kind of giving them
Yeah.
background on it.
Yep.
So like when she was talking to all of them, like after the dragon tamers were like, fuck this, I'm out, you're gonna kill all these fucking dragons and we're not gonna be a part of it. Or like you're like abusing the dragons, whatever. And then I like paused it and I was like, how the fuck are they going to do this? Are they going to do like where it's like one by one, like, you know, like the last guy that got got, where it's
Yeah.
like all these people are just going to be seeing like one after another, of, like these people dying this horrible death. And I'm like, the dragon isn't just going to sit around and just do that either. I'm like, are they going to have both dragons there at the same time?
Yeah.
And then when they had all of them just out there and then she left, I was like, bro, she didn't even like give them like, hey, this is like this Valyrian word. Like you should say this if he's starting to act like this. Like, you know what I mean? Like, don't be afraid. Like she didn't say any of that. And so I was like, damn, like she really just threw them to the wolves. And to like it was also like really interesting because I was thinking of like Sea Smoke at this time where she literally like like she flew however long like to go find Adam. And it was like, oh, okay, like she like he or whatever is like was like, that's my man, like I'm gonna go get him. And this like for this one, it was like that dragon was like, fuck everybody. Like he almost burnt like if Hugh wouldn't have like tried to save that lady, like who knows if like, you know, if he would have been like, okay, like actually been able to claim the dragon. So
Yeah.
I don't know. The whole thing was like really weird. And then like when Ulf was like walking around, I was like, I thought he stepped on a dragon egg,
Yeah, me
but
too.
I guess it was like poop. I don't know what it was. Like something. It
Well,
was
no, it
something.
was like like not a nest, like a clutch of the eggs, like in the ground. He like broke through the barrier of it, but he missed
Oh,
the
but he
eggs.
didn't
Like
like. Oh,
he
okay.
didn't step on the egg
Because
itself.
I was like, oh, he is done. Like
Yeah,
I was like, he
I
stepped
know.
on
That's
an
what I thought too.
egg.
But yeah, the way Rhaenyra, she brings out all those people. Vermithor's out there. At first, it's going all right, and then Vermithor just loses his shit. Like
I
he's called the
know.
Bronze Fury for a reason. Big Verm. And he just loses his shit. He's fire everywhere, chomping everybody. Like he's having a barbecue. He's having a grand old time,
Chomp,
right? He's like,
chomp.
you just brought me a fucking all you can eat buffet, you know. But Rhaenyra is just
He's
sitting
like,
there.
Targaryens taste the best.
Yeah, like Rhaenyra's watching this happen and just like it didn't seem like she was like, oh fuck, this went wrong. It seemed like she thought that was a very probable outcome of what was going to happen.
Mm,
And she was
mm.
totally fine sending all these people to their very, very brutal deaths. It's like, did that change the way you thought about Rhaenyra at all?
So for me, the only thing that it changed, I mean, you see like you definitely see a shift in her. Like you're saying, like, you know, she's basically like gone like this whole season, like very wishy-washy, like what the hell is she doing? Like all these things. And like so for me, like this episode like very much solidified that she's in it to win it. You know what I mean? So I think she was like,
That's
I'm
good.
like, if I'm gonna do this, I'm going for it. But to that point, it's like, okay, well, they didn't even have the other dragon, what is it, Silverwing? Like they didn't
Yeah.
even have her like in the mix or whatever. So it's like if all of these, what were they gonna do? Send like a second call for like more Targaryen? Like you know what I mean? I guess I didn't really understand the game plan if there was one. I get like just throwing things at the wall to see what sticks. And she had made up her mind and she was sticking to it, which like as a leader you need to do. Regardless of the consequences. And then like, you know, you need to like, okay, once the consequences come, then you're like, okay, well, we got to figure this out now. Um, but yeah, I guess I'm like, okay, so they're gonna kill all these like Targaryens and like people that clearly are like supporters of her because they even answered the call, you know? I don't know. I was a little that part to me, it didn't change the way if anything, this episode actually made me like Rhaenyra more because I was starting to be a Rhaenyra hater
Hmm.
in this season. So I actually kind of I like seeing a little bit of that dragon in her because if you're going to be a Targaryen and if you want the crown, like fucking prove that you want it.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that Brad had, our very own Brad Fay had as his LVP. He said, quote, I'm quoting Brad, the lack of understanding as to what it means to be accepted as a dragon rider and the lack of planning as to what the
Mm,
fuck they were going to do with the second
mm.
dragon if the first dragon killed everybody. Like, what were they doing there? I
A
get that. I think
rare
that,
Brad win with that
yeah, yeah.
thought.
I mean, I think that, like, in response to that, though, I think maybe the fact that Vermithor is the second biggest dragon, only to Vhagar. Vermithor was definitely the priority, and so if they were going to try Vermithor first, and if they had a rider for Vermithor, but everyone else died, like that's still a win for her because she didn't even know this is going to work. So, but that's the only thing I could think of. But
I mean, that makes sense.
yeah, but I mean, like these people, they're playing the lottery, like they're playing with their lives, of course,
Yeah.
but this is a lottery for them. And the goal was the two dragons. Like again, I said as soon as I saw this was happening, like, oh, I wonder which two are gonna get them. But you got Vermithor, the first guy to go up. Feel a little. I mean, I didn't feel bad when I was killing it in my notes, but I think that you guys made me feel a little bad about it afterwards. But
I feel bad about what I said. I was like, there's no fucking way. I saw
but
him and I was like, I'm sorry, no. I'm like,
yeah,
it'd be cool. It would be cool, but no.
yeah, they got the Quasimodo guy rolls up first, and props to him. I mean, I'm sorry. I hope no one's offended by that. But I
Okay,
mean,
I
he
literally
was
was
like,
I was like, oh my gosh, like maybe that's showing, like, you know what I mean? The first to step up, I'm like, maybe that's showing like the heart of a Targaryen, you know? And I thought, I said, so, I was like, no way. And then I was like, well, maybe.
yeah, I mean, George R. R. Martin loves like cripples and
Mm-hmm.
bastards and broken things, and so maybe
Mm-hmm.
he would show some love to this dude, whoever he was. I don't think we got a name for him, but as soon as he walked up, I was like, well, this guy ain't it. Like this guy has no chance. I didn't see it going the way it did, where just like Vermithor got offended that this dude tried to claim him and fucking started murking everyone. But yeah, the way that the soldiers were kind of holding everyone back as they were trying to
Yes.
flee, like that was kind of that's when I was like, damn,
That was
Rhaenyra, like
crazy.
that's pretty savage. Um,
That was really crazy to me. And then like obviously some people got through and then we saw like most others like were having to escape through like the cave. Yeah, that was yeah. I guess that part,
I
yeah,
mean,
I
do you
guess
think
that makes
Rhaenyra
sense.
is gonna try to hunt the people that escape down and kill them? And because if they leave and escape back to King's Landing, all the goodwill, like it could be similar to a few episodes ago with like the rat catchers. Like if all of a
Oh,
sudden they're talking about how, yeah, Rhaenyra put us out in front of these fucking dragons, promised we could potentially claim one, and then just like led us to this massacre and wouldn't let us leave, trapped us to try to kill us. Like,
yeah. Well, I mean, technically they knew what they were like. It's not like she was like, "Hey, we got a surprise for you." Like, you know what I mean? And then like she forced them to do it. Like they were very open and honest with like everyone, like, you know, about like, "Hey, like you can go get the chance, but like you might not come back." Like cuz they had that like Hugh and his wife had that conversation. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, "Well, I don't want to be a widow." Like, so they knew what they were signing up for. And to actually said they were playing the lottery, but their chances were way it was like 2 out of 40 like in that thing. That's I would play that
yeah, but it wasn't a guarantee that two of them are claiming the dragons. They could have killed all 40 in a
all
set.
of
Like,
them, yeah.
so anyway, one
Yeah.
of my favorite things about all this, though, obviously we know Hugh claims Vermithor and Ulf claims Silverwing, but the thing that I've loved seeing in the last two episodes now is that like these dragons totally have their own personalities. They're all very
Yeah.
distinct, and they kind of match really well with the personality of the rider. And so the way that all three of them that we've seen these last two have been claimed in very different ways is just so interesting and fun for me to watch. Like we had Sea Smoke was like flying around, like you talked about, actively searching for Adam. Like she knew what she wanted. She got her man. Like she went and did what she had to do. Vermithor was just like, a disgruntled, like dude was pissed, and he respected strength and
Mhm.
courage. And the
Mhm.
fact that Hugh stepped up like that, I think that's what did it there. And then Silverwing, I don't know, maybe Silverwing just had really low standards, or like was like, hey, there's someone in front of me right now. So like maybe
Oh.
just like a little,
She seemed like kind of playful, you know. She
yeah,
like
like the
was
little
nuzzle.
nudges.
That's like the cute. Okay, that is like one of the cutest things that these dragons do. Like you saw it with Golden Fire and Aegon when she was like, "Come on, let's
Yeah,
go," and it
Sunfire,
was like
yeah, yeah,
Sunfire. Yeah, thank you. And
yeah.
it was like that is like so cute. But it is actually really interesting to see the personalities because in Game of Thrones you don't see any personality of like the
Yeah,
dragons. You
it's
know
a
what I mean? We
dragon,
actually
yeah.
even barely see the dragons like due to some budget constraints apparently. But yeah, I love seeing the dragons like in their little
Yeah.
personalities. Oh god,
And
oh, I
it
don't want
does,
to
it
don't want
adds
to
so
think
much
about
to the
future.
show.
It
It adds
does.
so much to the show. Like not having having dragons is dope. Like they look incredible. The CGI is amazing.
Oh yeah,
Like
absolutely.
even this episode went to a whole nother level too with the way they showed Vermithor like close with the eye and the face and just so
Oh,
cool.
and that shot of Rhaenyra and like she like touches him and then she turns
Yeah.
around and he's like right. Oh my God, that's a beautiful shot.
Yeah. But the personality aspect, I just love that of really like showing how different all the dragons are. And it just emphasizes the bond that they have with the riders. Cause again, like a lot of times the personalities are similar between the dragon and the rider. So anyway, they claim him. Our boy Ulf, I don't know if he purposely like went and had a little joyride over King's Landing to just kind of like flex on all his friends in the brothel or whatever, or if just like Silverwing went for a ride, or they had like mind. I don't really know. But that was funny. And then Vagar, Aemond had to fucking ride out on a horse to find Vagar's big ass.
Yeah, that was
And
weird to me.
yeah, I guess Vagar's too big. She can't
go
like
anywhere.
live. She can't live inside like the kingdom or inside the Red Keep or inside the Dragon Mount or whatever.
But you think they would
the
have?
Dragon
Yeah.
Pit.
Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, but so
have
anyway,
thoughts on that.
Vagar goes. Aemon's like, "Oh, I'm gonna fucking kill this dragon, whoever it is, and who the rider is."
She said, "Bitch, you come to King's Landing."
But then somehow in his one eye, I couldn't see this on TV, but apparently in the one eye he could see Rhaenyra standing there with all the other dragons too, and he got scared and fled. But that was just such a fucking awesome final shot of Rhaenyra standing there and the dragons all like roaring at the same time. Like it's like those dragons were all talking shit. Like, yeah, fucking take your ass away, Vagar, you bitch. Like
Cyrax was like,
shit.
"Let's go." She's like, "Turn around, your crusty, dusty, musty dragon butt." Like, you see this? We got a whole crew. You're not gonna jump one of us anymore. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like with your
yeah.
big ass. Okay, but going back to Vagar and like King's Landing, Vagar's just out there in the woods, just like chilling. Like that seems like so. How long? It probably took him a long time to ride out there to go
Probably.
fight. Like, you know what I mean? I'm like the whole thing. Like, you would think there would be a better system. I guess never really thought about Vagar being too big for their dragon pit. It makes sense. But like she's just totally I mean, I know dragons can like take care of themselves, but I mean they have like those spear things or whatever, those big bow and arrow things. Like I don't know. It's just that seems like too like out in the open to me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, but those I don't think anyone's fucking with Vagar, and she's just I don't know if like that.
If you have like 4 dragons and like she doesn't have a dragon rider and they like somehow are able to, I don't know, meh. It doesn't matter.
Well, to recap where we're at with both sides, it looks now after this episode that like Team Black and Rhaenyra, they're in very good position because right now they have what is it 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 dragons to 3. So they have Rhaenyra has Cyrax, Daemon, who is kind of off doing his own thing, but he's still, at least we think, technically on their side. Daemon has Caraxes, Baela has Moondancer, Jace has Vermax, and now Hugh has Vermithor, Big Verm, Ulf has Silverwing, and Adam has Sea Smoke. And then Team Green, as far as we know, has the biggest and the baddest. Aemon's got Vagar, Helena has Dreamfire, and then Darren, who maybe we see next episode. That's the brother. Maybe we see the next season, but they talked about his dragon now 2 episodes in a row. Tessarion is his. So it looks like they only have 3 to the 7 on Team Black. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see, but I mean, I think we're gonna probably get a lot more dragon battles probably very soon.
Yeah. And I mean, there's been so much hint of like, what is it, Baela maybe getting that wild
Rhaena.
one.
Yeah, that's another one. Exactly. And if Rhaena claims that the big wild one in the Vale before she leaves, then that's 8 as a whole nother one that is added to those numbers. So well, let's move on and talk about your boy Daemon. So I mean, this was my favorite episode with Daemon this season, at least.
Finally, yes.
It's still like the visions, like I really am over it, but the scene with him and the River Lords, and particularly our boy Lord Oscar Tully, were just fucking great. That kid is amazing. My favorite character in the show, I think. But the River Lords finally come to Harrenhal to meet with him, and like they fucking hate Daemon dead. Like they hate this dude.
Yeah. Every single one of them.
Every one of them. And they're like, they don't just hate him, but they're like scared. Oh, he's a Targaryen, or he's like the king consort or whatever. Like,
We
maybe
don't
we should
care.
just like shut up. Like, they will talk all their shit to him, which was great. But it's interesting because they're not like, why should we follow? Like, we're on Team Green. Like, they're not on Team Green. They know that they should be on Team Black. They want to be down for the cause. They just hate that asshole, you know? And Daemon at multiple times in this episode has to kind of swallow his pride and just like take some of the shit, which he just does not do well with. But I want to throw up a couple quotes from our boy Oscar here. He just like drags Daemon in front of everybody the whole time, multiple times. He goes, I have no love for Daemon Targaryen. He's dishonored himself and the crown with his comportment here. Okay. He goes, I see no reason to cast aside loyalty, no matter how loathsome I might find her representative, the prince. And he kept calling him either king consort and emphasizing consort, or calling him the prince just because he gets so pissed off about it. And then he says, I'm in the end a riverman, and the word of my house stands, even if certain people are unworthy of it. So he basically, the kid had a really good plan because he needed to do the right thing. He needed to get what he needed to get from Daemon, but he also needed to earn the respect from all his people, because like that was the most important thing for him. And so it's really a fine line. And I think like the way he went about it was really good, because he's like, okay, these people don't know anything about me. They probably don't like me. They don't really have any desire to follow me, but they all hate this guy. So I'm going to turn it all around on him. You know?
That was so beautiful. And the fact that Daemon was trying to use like their own, like, what the fuck do you know about like the Riverlands and like their traditions and the way of old and like stuff like that? And like, you know, the morals that they live by. So Daemon was like so heavy on that. And he's like, okay, all right. Yeah, you're right. You know what? Yeah, we do go by that set of rules, but guess what is a part of those set of rules, motherfucker? And then like that, I do feel bad for the guy. I mean, obviously, like he did like a lot of really terrible things, but I do feel bad for the guy that was like, yo, Daemon, like you fucking told me to do this and you told me I was going to be good. Like I told you that we shouldn't. And then, you know, we know what happened to him there, but Daemon had to do it.
Yeah, that was Willem Blackwood, and which is interesting because in season 1 we see Willem Blackwood when he's a little kid, and he like bosses up and kills that bully, and so we're like, oh, what a cool little kid, and he turns out to be this guy, and now we see another better little kid take him out essentially. But Oscar says if Daemon wants to show his contrition for his acts and prove that he's deserving of the Rivermen's banners, he will rectify his grievous error, denounce Blackwood's crimes, and dispense justice, which of course Daemon has to do. But I think that like, yeah, Daemon, I mean, I don't think he has any problem killing anybody, beheading anybody, doing that. But the fact that like, it's like this little kid telling him that he has to do it, and then knowing that like, yeah, he has to do it. It like really fucks with Daemon, like having people tell him what to do.
Yeah, I mean, that is like a huge part of it, but also too, like that is like the one guy that is like, yo, Daemon, like I'm ride or die for you. Like no one else like even gives, no one gives a shit about what Daemon has to say or what he wants, or that he is like the king consort, or he's acting as like a representative of Rhaenyra, even though like he clearly isn't. Like, so I think that just really fucked with him as well, being like, this is the opposite of what I want to do. Like, you know what I mean? And like, this is the person that really is the only one that's like going to listen to me. So I think like I don't know, in the afterthoughts, like they made a really good point of like, you know, this is like the focus on his face at the end. It's like, you just see him like almost like losing the very last like drop of like who he was and like his like grip on reality or whatever they said.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing a change in Daemon for sure, and I think that was his first taste of like, this has been his first taste in like what it would be like to be ruling, like with a lot of people that need a lot and want a lot of different things, and you can't just do everything you want the whole time. You have to swallow your pride sometimes, and he's not about it. And it went straight from that scene into his hopefully last vision, which had Paddy Considine again coming back as Viserys, but like the real fucked up version of Viserys. And, you know, they talk about the crown, and Viserys never wanted it. He said, Daemon, you always wanted it. Like it causes so much pain. It crushes whoever wears it. Do you still want it? And you see that face in Daemon, like Daemon didn't go and grab it. Like he might be really second guessing for the first time this season, at least, of Like, is it worth it? Like, is this really what I want? And I think that's ultimately the culmination, I hope, of this kind of storyline where like he had all these visions, like he was fucked with for an entire damn season. It went far too long, but it got to the point where Damon realized that like maybe that's not his ambition. Maybe he should fall back in line and be happy doing what he wants, still having a lot of power, but he doesn't need to be the one that wears the crown himself.
Yeah, I agree with you. I hope there's no more visions. I don't know, but like, what do you think is like the end game? Like, so say like, regardless of like whatever like this witch lady is doing, like, what is the end game here? Is it just to truly just show Damon like, yo, like you need to get in line? Like, is it to like is it to bat him down so he's not like as big of a foe? Like, what is I just don't see the purpose of all this.
I think
Maybe we will. I hope we will, so it's not all for naught.
I have no idea what the purpose is from like Alice's perspective. But I think from the showrunner's perspective, they're like, okay, we're gonna have this whole emotional journey for him that will last a whole season, and he's gonna come in one way and he's gonna go through a lot of shit and revisit his past, and he's gonna come out a different person on the end, and then that's where we'll pick up next season with this new and improved version of Damon. And just like that's what it seems like from the decision to do this for the plot line. I don't love it. But I really like if you're asking me what is Alice doing? What's her motivation? Like I have no fucking idea.
Okay. Well, so yeah, that's a mystery to everybody.
Yeah. Well, going from the Harrenhal storyline to the technical Lord of Harrenhal, Larys Strong. He's an interesting one too because I feel like he's changed a lot from season 1 to season 2. And I'm not really sure what's going on with him. We see him twice. He has the scene with him and Lord Jasper, who's the other guy on the small council. They go back and forth like, oh, we heard there's a new dragon rider on Sea Smoke, and like, oh, you want to tell him? Like, no, you want to tell him? You want to tell him?
He's like, well, where'd you hear this from? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, you heard it from like a squire who heard it from a fisherman who heard it from this guy who heard it from this guy? Maybe you want to keep that news to yourself. I mean, I couldn't decide if it was like just a game of telephone. So like no one wanted to be, in case the news was wrong, they didn't want to be the one to tell them and then it was wrong. Or if like they were purposefully withholding information from them. I don't really think it necessarily matters. But I do think now the fact that the way the episode ended with Aemon finding out and they kind of just are sitting there at the small council looking at each other like, oh fuck, like he found out this way, he didn't find out because we told him. There might be some retribution from Aemon next episode.
You took it that way. I took it the opposite way where like it was almost like purposeful that they didn't want him to find out, like, you know what I mean, like because it's like, oh, like then they couldn't plan and stuff, and like clearly now that Larys is like, oh, Aegon needs to get better because I don't have like a club foot in with Aemon anymore. I was like, oh, I thought this was or they see like, oh, he's like a really like awful leader, like not awful leader, but like a what would that word be?
He's
like
a wild card. He's
like a wild card. He's like he's like a really
ruthless.
Yeah, ruthless. Thank you. Like a ruthless leader. So I'm like, I don't know if it's I felt like it was almost purposeful that they're like, oh, like because Aemon would have had like this whole plan, like, you know what I mean? Like, okay, like they're gonna claim a dragon. If they come around town, then we're gonna have like this whole thing like that is like planned out for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, and I went back and forth. Like that's totally on the table.
Yeah.
But I think now the fact that they didn't tell him and then he found out they're sitting there at the small council and he hears yelling like a dragon, he has to go out and he finds out that way that not
like,
only
why didn't you
does
guys
Sea Smoke
know?
have a rider, but now he saw Vermithor and he saw did he see and he saw Silverwing. So he knows now that Rhaenyra has had this plan, has succeeded, and has 3 more dragons, and he never had a chance to do anything about it because his people purposefully didn't tell him. So I can see him being pissed off at his people now for not preparing him, and there's no way they could kind of go back on it.
That's true. And the only way that he would know would be if those two like rat on each other. You know what I mean? Be like, well, like Jasper told me that he was going to tell you. It's like, well, Larys said that he was going to tell you. It's like his master of whisper. So it's like, it's either like something like that's going to happen and then they're both going to get fucked, or yeah, like because how else would he, or he's just going to be mad and be like, what do I need you guys for anyways? Like, you know, you're supposed to be the master of whispers.
Yeah. I don't
Huh.
know. You're right, but I could see it, and he's crazy, so I wouldn't be surprised if like, yeah, there's some retribution, particularly with the other. I could see Laris actually, since he's more of a schemer, going and ratting out the other guy that he knew he came to me with this. He was supposed to tell you, and he didn't, and then that guy gets got, and like that's part of a Laris plan to save himself too. I could see that
Yeah.
happening. Um, well, moving on to the last person I really want to talk about this episode before we get into our awards is Queen Alicent. Now, I think this was there's a lot of I don't know, polarizing talk online about this scene and Alicent's character arc, and particularly just like again this little glamping trip that she had in the woods with her one Kingsguardsman. What did you think about this scene? I'm curious to know your opinion here.
I hated it. I thought it was like a really big waste of time. I don't really care. Like at the like after like and admittedly like I'm not very good like when I'm watching a show like I don't think through like a lot of the metaphorical stuff a lot like just because it's like it's for me it's like entertainment unless like I truly like see something that's like okay whatever. But her storyline to me, I'm just over it. I don't care what kind of revelation she comes back with because clearly it's been shown that she has no power. Like, no one gives a fucking afterthought about her. Like, you know what I mean? Like, she's put herself in this position. She's put the whole kingdom, like, she's put everyone in this position because of, like, all the things that she's done throughout her life and, like, the stances that she's taken against Rhaenyra and her side of the family. So I don't give a fuck. I don't care that you're in your feelings. I don't care that you want to go glamping. I don't care that you're fucking like have this renewed like or whatever they were trying to show of like this like rebirth or whatever like in that stupid fucking like lake scene. I don't care. I think it was a waste of time. And also too, what I loved was that like her Kingsguard was like, so like how long do you think
Yeah,
we're
when do you
gonna
want to
be
go
out
home? When are we
here?
gonna?
Or he's like he's like eating like taking out like an intestine of like some disgusting thing that they're having to eat and stuff. She's like, I don't know, we might be out here forever. And he's like, oh. But I
He's
don't
like,
know. I
fuck.
guess what are your thoughts on it? Because I know like obviously
I think
um
I've actually really liked her storyline this season. I like
mhm,
seeing her go from all uppity and just really having things crash down around her, and
mhm.
seeing and the actress I think just does such a great job
Oh, wonderful.
um of really showing this downfall of her character and seeing that everything she believed is not in fact true. So I've really liked that. I think this episode though they spend too much time on it. Like I
Yeah.
didn't mind that the scene happened, but it was a little bit too much in the episode. But we'll see where it leads. It all will, it will be great depending on, if it leads to something good, or it will be pointless if it doesn't. So
Yeah, true.
anyway, I think it's time we move on to our awards for the episode, starting with the MVP, the most valuable player, or the biggest winner of the episode. I will tell you right now, we already talked about him. My number one, Lord Oscar Tully, just the 12-year-old prodigy given Lyanna Mormont vibes there, like just crushing Damon. That was the MVP to me. What about you?
I would say I think the MVP is Rhaenyra because her plan worked and she has all these dragons. Obviously Hugh, he's my boy. I love him. And then two, like I think just this episode in general, like I mentioned in the beginning, like this was my favorite episode. This episode to me felt like it was not trying to replicate Game of Thrones. It was not like being this like weird like thing that I didn't like. Like you know what I mean, it felt like its own show finally. So I really enjoyed the writing. I enjoyed like the scenes. I thought it was really beautifully shot. There was a lot of and like there's like humor to it. Like you know what I mean? Like it felt really fresh. It felt new to me. So those are my MVPs.
Okay, awesome. I like it. Honorable mention for me, you mentioned Hugh, but I'll give Ulf and Adam MVP nods as well because they came from nothing and
Mm.
now they got a dragon. So, transitioning to LVP, biggest loser, least valuable player of the episode, Kate chimed in. She said hers is Alicent. She's just said, "Why is she swimming on my screen? Get the fuck out of here." A little harsh for me. I'm fine seeing her anytime, but yeah, I get that. Uh, who did you have as your LVP?
My LVP, I don't know if I really had one. This one, I get, well, you go first, and then I thought I had one, but
Uh,
like now I'm trying to think who my LVP would be.
yeah, mine, it would be the dude Willem Blackwood we talked about because he was
Mm,
doing war crimes in Damon's stead. He thought he was doing the right thing. He thought Damon had his back, and he got his head chopped off. So no loyalty out here, and he shouldn't have done what he did, but he paid for it, and so he is the loser for me.
mm. Yeah, okay. I'll agree with that one, and then I guess all the people who left their lives behind to go
Got
and
burnt
they
up.
met a terrible, terrible death.
Yeah, and similarly for cringe moment, I mean, mine was same thing. Like all those people that got burnt up. Kate said the same thing. My other one was Aegon because that dude looks fucking bad. I mean, it's
It's
weird. On one
terrible.
hand, he looks better than I would think he would look at this point,
Yeah, because it's
but
only
at
been
the
like a
same
couple
time,
weeks, right? Or not even that.
yeah.
Like he
Um,
should not be healed up like that.
but like that dude, his ear, he doesn't have one. He just has like a hole in his head that looked really bad. His hairline now, he looks so old and gross. So that was kind of the cringe for me. Did you have a cringe?
I it's not like a cringe, but it's more of like a watch out of like how like does Rhaenyra's handmaid just be able to come in and out of King's Landing all the time, just being able to spread all this like crazy stuff? Like how are they allowing all this happening all the time? I think that's like a little loophole in the writing. Um, but like, yeah, cringe. It's going back to, was it Raina up in the veil? Like it was like a little 15-second like clip, and it's like we get it. Like she's trying to find this dragon. Like we get it. Like I hate
Yeah,
that.
like it's very
I hated
obvious she
that.
will be. We said that last episode. Like it's
Yes,
very
exactly.
obvious she's
We
gonna
don't need
play
that
this role.
scene. Yes,
Yeah.
it was like 15 seconds. She was like frolicking, like she's like the besides the two princes, she's royalty, like that all these people that are like yards ahead of her, like just leaving her behind. Like I mean, I'm like, aren't you supposed to be watching out for her? I don't know. It was a waste of a scene to me.
Yeah. We'll see what happens when she ends up getting that dragon, what we think. But um anyway, I would say I want to do a finale predictions, but like it's too wide open, man. I don't think we can do it yet. We do have one episode to go. So yeah, but do you have any final thoughts on this episode as a whole? Anything you want to talk through before we close up?
No, I don't think I really have anything. It's just gonna be, since there is, for some reason I thought maybe this was the end of House of the Dragon. But there's one more season left. So while there might be like I don't know if they're gonna like, do you think they're gonna like set up a battle? Like because
I
we
hope we
talked
see a
a
battle. I really do.
I
I hope
hope
there's
at
some
least,
fighting.
well, I don't know because like historically Game of Thrones leaves seasons on like really big cliffhangers. You know what I mean? Like like Daenerys like coming with all the ships and like her dragons. Like, there's a lot of cliffhangers. They don't usually end on battles.
Well, House of
So
the Dragon, though, the finale last year was when Luke got killed by Aemon and Vhagar. So,
mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm just hoping. I hope somebody dies. I hope we see something momentous that's a big deal. There was a lot of setup this season, and like it's moving, like things are moving, and I like it.
Mm-hmm.
But I really want to see some action happen in that finale for sure.
Do
So,
you think Damon makes it to season 3? Do you think
um,
he finishes his arc this season?
no, I think there's more. I think he does make it because of what we saw in this episode. Like if
Okay.
he just was continually to like go downhill, he's going crazier and crazier. Like
Then it'd be
I
like,
could see
no.
him just dying there. But I think that like this was the turning point where
Okay.
he realizes like how he has to change. Last episode we saw him be empathetic and really care for other people other than himself. And now this episode we see him have second thoughts about really wanting the crown and where he fits in with this whole thing. So I think that will take him through to next season.
Okay.
We'll see. We'll see. But anyway, that is going to do it with this episode of the Geek and You Shall Find podcast. We will be back next episode with the full Superhero Faces team to talk about the season 2 finale. If you're watching it on YouTube, youtube.com/superhero faces or podcasting platforms, thank you, thank you, thank you. Please make sure to like and subscribe and comment and share, engage with us so we can talk it all out with you. It does make a difference. So thank you again, and we will see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Geek and You Shall Find podcast, powered by Superhero Faces. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Superhero Faces, and on Instagram at Superhero_Faces.